that the Albanese government's handling of the High Court detainee debacle was incompetent and the ministers involved, Claire O'Neill and Andrew Giles, needed to be sent back to the backbench, as I do, what about the climate zealot and fantasist Chris Bowen, who's been in Dubai? Now, speaking at an informal roundtable discussion in Dubai, and we can't find the audio of this, at COP28, the useless UN climate conference, Australia's climate and energy minister, and by the way, whoever thought it was a great idea to put those two jobs together? Well, Chris Bowen, like he does back home, decided to play the tough guy, all full of bluster and hubris. His hilarious declaration included calls for Australia to end the use of unabated fossil fuels in our energy grids. He then went on to hammer home his fantasy by calling on the world and Australia not to phase out fossil fuel emissions, but end their use entirely. Now, this is a direct quote from Bowen at that round table. Quote, "If we are to keep 1.5C alive, fossil fuels have no ongoing role to play in our energy system." Our being Australia, I presume. And he went on, and him, speak as the Climate and Energy Minister of one of the world's largest fossil fuel exporters. OK, look, our budget is only in surplus, as we know, because of those exports, off which hang tens of thousands of jobs, supporting hundreds of communities right around Australia, coal and gas jobs. He then waffles on about the Pacific with another direct quote. He said, "We live in the Pacific and we are not going to see our brothers and sisters inundated and their countries swallowed by the sea." I mean, talk about inflammatory language. Seriously, this is a senior minister in the Australian government standing up in an oil and gas kingdom called Dubai, forecasting the end of Australia's fossil fuel usage at the cost of billions and billions of lost export revenue and hundreds of jobs. Now, I guess Minister Bowen is now flying back to Australia on a jet powered by fossil fuel, probably sitting in seat 1A, patting himself on the back as he frequently does. He might then have missed what happened overnight at this UN gathering. Now, this is delicious. COP28, run by and in the UAE, where there is virtually oil spewing from the desert to make petrol, and everyone there very rich, dropped any mention in their communique of phasing out the use of oil and gas that Mr Bowen was talking about. The exact opposite, actually, of what Bowen was urging. Instead, the language calls for vague action and loose little timelines. Well, that sent the climate change crowd into a panicked frenzy of angry protest. Someone described as the CEO of Climate Analytics called the draft a mess, giving fossil fuel exporters a green light to expand production. Greenpeace called it a dog's dinner. Another advocate there called it weak and divorced from what was needed. In other words, the Arab oil producers hosted a climate change talkfest, said thanks for coming, but we're going to keep doing what makes the palaces of Dubai possible and our country rich by, wait for it, pumping oil out of the ground and turning it into barrels for export to be refined into petrol. Now, look, it's so funny, I wonder if the Climate Change and Energy Minister of Australia actually gets the joke.